probably get.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this, whenever you're watching this, welcome to a special free agency edition of the Draft Crush Show. We got one person you're familiar with, maybe one person you're not as familiar with, but first I'm joined by Ricky Rains. Ricky, how are you?
Good, man. I can tell you one place that people are definitely not watching this, and that's Twitter. Because that thing blew up on itself like we've all kind of been anticipating for a long time, and it just so happened to be on the free agency beginning. So that's a fun way to start the day. But we've got a really awesome guest here with us who agreed to come on here even despite all of these challenges. Jordan, man, how are you today?
I'm good. We locked up JC Horn today. That was definitely a big move for us Panthers fans, and I'm excited for this free agency. I know it's not a great free agency class, but there's a lot of needs that we as Panthers fans have that can get filled, and I'm excited to talk some ball and hang out for a little bit.
Yeah, I jumped right in front of Edgar. Edgar, I didn't even let you introduce our guest and tell everybody about what he does so well. Let you do your job, Edgar, please.
No,
continue.
You're good. We've got Jordan Vanek here. I've known Jordan for a long time. Just a big fan of his work. I've gotten to know him because he's like one of the top people, one of the experts I think of when I think of wide receiver analysis for the draft and for pros, and so that's why we wanted to bring him on. Jordan, is there anything else that you wanted to share about like who you are? How about this, Jordan? Every guest we've had on, we asked them, can you tell us your draft? Because all of us are draft heads and like fall in love with the draft. So maybe you could share with us where and how you fell in love with the draft.
So when I was in college, I started to become obsessed with the draft. Actually, the year where Trubisky went over Mahomes and Watson, and it just made me adamant of like, what are you doing? Like, how did this all happen? And I've been in love with football for the longest time. And that was the first year I was like, you know what? I'm going to do scouting reports, like my own stuff with it, build a board, go full 9 yards in there. And actually 2 years later, I ended up working as a player personnel intern at University of Central Florida for recruiting high school kids and helping out, some of those kids get looked at by their coaches and different things. And staff that I was there at the time, we had Josh Heupel, we had Jeff Levy, who was the person I reported to, and I was able to recruit Dylan Gabriel, who's in this class. I got to chat with him at the Senior Bowl and be like, I cut up your film. When I was one of the first people to like see you at UCF. And some of the stuff kind of got me obsessed with the game of football. And after looking at offensive linemen and different things, I was like, you know what? I love receiver play. This is where I've always been. And each year I don't necessarily give draft grades, but because there's a quote from Bill Belichick, tell me what a player can do. Don't tell me what a player can do. If you can be effective on a bunch of snaps, that's what we're looking for. We are trying to get players that are going to be players for our team, not necessarily players for everybody. And for receivers, that's so true to every single team in the NFL. And as a Panthers fan, I can say I've been disappointed in some of the draft picks we made at receiver. I remember going to the Senior Bowl 2 years ago or 3 years ago now, and I was not into Jonathan Mingo. I was very adamant I wanted Dontavian Wicks over him, Tank Dell, some of the other guys, and seeing his name get called was like a oof. And glad we got a fourth. That's a lot higher than I anticipated. I don't care if he's cap controlled. I did not see a lot from him, but I'm happy with Xavier Legette. I liked him at the Senior Bowl last year. He's just a prospect you have to be patient with, which is the big one.
Patience is a tough thing, man. Like, I feel like that's what a lot of these fan bases and Panthers are a fan base that, you know, I think is very familiar with this. It's hard to be patient when you make that like win now move of going and drafting that quarterback, right? You move up for him, you get him in, and you've got the owner running around talking about he's going to distribute through routes like a point guard. And, you know, we don't need good players because we've got this guy. And then he has this terrible rookie season, which had a lot of context around it. We don't want to just say, like, look, he sucks. He's not good. No, we believe in Bryce Young. At least Edgar and I do. I know that we can speak to that. But when you look at Xavier Legette, so the Carolina Panthers, Jordan, let's get into a little bit of draft stuff real quick then, since you brought it up. With Xavier Legette on the roster, are you still looking at wide receivers as a possibility for the Carolina Panthers, or do you think that they should be focused strictly on that absolutely historical bad defense that they put out on the field last year?
So receiver should always be looked at because of what these guys are starting to get paid. So, like, if you can see someone that could be your one, you draft it. It's Xavier Legette is not locked into being the guy going forward, and I don't think he will be a number one wide receiver in the NFL. I think he is a very, very good number two with just timing and developing. Like, the end of last season, he dropped some passes that was frustrating, but he was open. He was on time with Bryce. It was a great spot for him to make a play, and he was dealing with multiple ailments and injuries. And the way, if you know his story, you can understand why the production in college was the way it was. And at that size and speed, like, I see what we wanted, and I think he can get to that player. It's, again, process is everything. Timing is everything. With Bryce Young, like, this guy Bryce Young got benched. Xavier Legette had to play like 5 weeks with Andy Dalton and then come back to Bryce Young. It's different style of play. It's different quarterbacking. And they started to get onto the same page and had big moments towards that end of the stretch. It just came up short on a few of them. I'm excited for him to have a breakout season because I remember when rookie receivers, like, 800 yards was a good season.
Yeah.
10 years ago, like that is a very, very good season. And nowadays, if you don't get 1,200 as a rookie, it's like, oh, does this guy have it? And
right.
It's like, relax. This is there's players that are prospects and there are players that are NFL ready. Am I happy we picked him over Ladd? No. But I also I understand we went for more upside, and Ladd is obviously improved to be an incredible player. But again, I wasn't really mad at the Xavier Legette pick, and I'm excited to see what he does this upcoming year.
Yeah. So we've got some free agency stuff. Edgar, we have big news already with that?
Yeah, we've got. I'm updating the ticker here. I know I think I'm alive on Twitter. I don't know if
I'm getting the notifications. Like, I see Drew Dahlman got the Bears deal, 3-year, $42 million deal, second highest paid. That's a big deal, and that's a big loss to Atlanta, it seems, which is nice.
Yeah, I can log into Twitter, so yeah, there is something going on here.
Yeah, so I'm live. I could try to make you live, Ricky.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Okay.
The more the merrier.
But we got some news. Maybe Jordan, since you're the wide receiver expert, you and Ricky both. We've got one of the first news that dropped at the 12 o'clock hour was Chris Godwin resigning with the Bucs. There's some rumors that it was a competition between the New England Patriots and the Bucs for Chris Godwin. And so, what impact do you see Chris Godwin for the Bucs coming back? And then what do you see the Patriots as pivoting to, or what solutions are there left for them for wide receiver?
As a Panthers fan, I did not want Godwin to come here. I know there was a late report last night, like Panthers, Patriots, Bucs, and I was like, I watched Dave Canales misutilize Chris Godwin 2 years ago. I'm good. I don't need, we're good. We don't, it's not the type of receiver archetype. We have Adam Thielen here. He's good. We're fine. Everything's good. But as far as the Bucs, Chris Godwin's a big get. I don't love bringing him back from what I saw from Jalen McMillan. I think it might stunt his growth a little bit. But if they're trying to make Jalen McMillan a more complete receiver, this move is awesome for him because he continues to work, in the slot out wide like he did last year. And Chris Godwin can just hold the slot down. Mike Evans can hold the boundary down. And for them, this guy was having a career year with Baker last year. It'll be interesting to see if they can go 3 straight years getting an offensive coordinator that turns into a head coach. Not sure if they can do that, but their offensive line's really good. Chris Godwin's still a good player. I know he's older, coming off another big injury, but he's one of those guys that are kind of timeless. Like, he's just going to be a good slot. He's not going to separate a ton, but he's going to make catches. He's going to make plays for you and move the chains. Ricky, what do you think about Godwin?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, man, because you brought up the injury, right? With the age and coming off of the injury. Now, it's not like he's old, right? But he's not 20 or 21. He's not a rookie coming in off of these injuries. And as we get older, I can say this as a guy who's turning 38 this year, right? As we get older, little things matter a whole lot more when you talk about injuries. And so when you have a substantial one, like an Achilles injury, Jordan, as somebody who evaluates wide receivers almost like to a meticulous manner, right? How does something like that impact the way that you view them as like, hey, look, we just signed it for 3 years, $66 million, right? That's a substantial investment. Does that worry you at all?
It definitely worries me, but the cap's always going up. We just increased it by $20 million this year. That's where it's like T. Higgins. I mean, DK Metcalf got $30+ million for $150 million total, $30 million a year. I'm looking at what T. Higgins is going to do, and then Jamar Chase, and it's like, you're telling me Godwin's going to get paid half of what Jamar Chase's contract might be? Right. It's like, that makes sense. Like that. Sure. That's where the numbers kind of lie, and I don't know if he's. This is the other thing that I think fans and everybody kind of overreact to, where they see the number and they think about just the player.
Yeah.
But Chris Godwin as a person took less money with Brady. He's been that like community guy for Tampa Bay. Him and Mike Evans are one of the greatest duos ever in the sport. Definitely one of the more underrated duos, and I don't love them as a Panthers fan, but Mike Evans in later weeks of the season when J.C. Horn has gone down has scarred me in ways that I don't like to admit there. But I'm looking at Chris Godwin and I'm like, this is a dude that can teach too. That's what Adam Thielen has been doing for us, which is another reason I like Xavier Legette going forward. Is like, they're players that show players how to work and how things are getting done. And for Jalen McMillan for the next 3 years, because that's where Jalen McMillan's on his rookie deal, it's the perfect person to kind of learn from to get better at his game. And it would allow Godwin some time to come back from injury because McMillan can hold down the slot.
That's a good point. I wonder if that Adam Thielen, because you saw the things that Xavier Legette did progress in, right? From like his last season at South Carolina to his rookie season in the NFL, was that kind of like the route running? Was that finding the soft spots, which is all things that you can point to with Adam Thielen and say, this is if you just watch the guy. You don't even have to have him like sitting next to you, right? Which Xavier did. But if you just watch the guy, you can learn this part of the game. So Xavier being able to sit there and not only watch it up close and personal, see it in practice, but then pick his brain a little bit about it. It showed up, it materialized. So that's a great point about what Godwin can kind of bestow upon Jalen McMillan to kind of push him forward in his career.
What do you think about the Patriots, Ricky and Jordan? I'll start with Jordan. What do you think about the Patriots? They've been hunting wide receiver ones for a while. They've been a popular Tetero McMillan destination. Any ideas or thoughts like what would be a good fit for that? I know they drafted 2 last year, especially Ricky's favorite, Jalen Polk. So any ideas if you're the Patriots GM, where do you want to go?
He couldn't wait to say Jalen Polk to get you to tell me how wrong I was about Jalen Polk. So let's get this mess out of the way.
Hey, you're not wrong yet. They got to get the right system. Obviously, Josh McDaniels in place. That slot is the most important position on the field for his offense. I can't. So I don't think they can take Tet at that pick. Their offense line is just way too bad to not address it in some way, shape, or form, or trading out of the pick. If they get a chance at Travis Hunter, that's a no-brainer for them, I think, because that would be an alpha for that offense. He doesn't necessarily fit the slot role for them, but he does things on a football field that I know everybody's trying to pencil. Is he receiver? Is he corner? He's just really good, and I will take a really good player that can play whatever I need him to on two of the most premier
day.
positions in sports right now. And if anybody can do the whole both ways thing in the NFL, it's him. I know it's never been done before, but he also it's never been done at his level in college football. But as far as what I think they should do in the draft, I stare at a guy like Xavier Restrepo in day 2. I stare at a guy like Luther Burden if he slips into day 2, which I've seen some from mock drafts. Those are the types of dudes that I think they need to go after. And I know Luther and Xavier Restrepo are two very different players. But when I watched Drake May in college, who was his best friend? It was Josh Downs. Josh Downs and him were entwined every single play. It felt like they were able to get it done because Drake May is like, oh, this is working. Demario Douglas has had moments where he gets like 8 for 70. And it's like, that's because Drake May is comfortable throwing to the slot. And Xavier Restrepo is a guy that his 40 is going to be bad. I don't really care about that. He's strong like a bull. I've known the kid since he was 6. Like I coached him at Pop Warner down here in Coconut Creek for like helping out with drills and different things. I'll never forget his dad telling me he's going to the league. Like he's going to go to the league. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, this dude's undersized when he's like 6. Like he was really small his whole life. But then he weighed in first player, 5'9" and over 200 plus pounds at the combine. Like, he is 60 pounds heavier than Tez Johnson, and they play the same position, which blows my mind but it's not surprising. He's a workout freak, and if you watch his college film, like we talk about, sitting soft spot, getting open in zone coverage, he did it every single year. And I got to talk to him at the Senior Bowl. The way he knows football is going to be something a team loves, especially a team like Josh McDaniels. This kid is going to be a probably 8 to 10 year vet at the slot. Like he's going to dominate in the slot. Like you don't draft him if you're Lions with Amon-Ra, but if you're the Patriots with Demario Douglas, this is the guy you get in there, give your rookie quarterback a best friend. And if you're a team that drafts Cam Ward, like bring back the dude that he felt most comfortable going to on 3rd and long. So those are the two things that I think the Patriots should do.
Now you brought up Luther Burden, which I thought was a really interesting thing. And I think that his entire like draft stock or outlook trajectory has been wild to see for me personally, because when I watch him on tape, and I remember coming into last draft season, right? Last pre-draft period, I was very high on him. I thought he was terrific. I thought he was going to be wide receiver 1 competing with Tet for that. I still think he's right there. I don't think that changed all that much for me. But what's weird to me, Jordan, is now you hear a lot of people and they're like, Brady Cook had a really nice combine. Brady Cook really spun the ball well. It's like, well, Brady Cook, wasn't that the same guy that we're looking at when we're watching these Luther Burden game films? And like, man, you gotta give Luther a little bit of grace here, right? Like he's dealing with a lot of things. But with Luther, for me, I still see this guy who I don't think is slot specific, right? I still think that he can win outside. I think that a lot of what he did from the slot even kind of lends you to see that, how comfortable he was on the boundary out of the slot, right? Like he did a lot of things that ended up along that boundary. He knows his spatial awareness. He knows that could be a helpful thing for him. What do you think about Luther? Is there a reason to think that he should drop into that second round range that you're talking about possibly with the Patriots, which would be at the top of round 2, right? We're not talking about a guy falling to the Panthers at pick 57. If it happens, run the card up. I'll sprint from Charlotte myself, right? But do you think that there's real reason, man, for the people that are really doubting Luther Burden right now?
I have him as my wide receiver, I think 4 or 3 in the class. He's with the same tier as Matthew Golden, where we have questions from this past season. You just can't ignore the production he had. And we can credit it to what the offense did with him, because it's Missouri's offense last year was just atrocious. It was frustrating, but it's really weird because they have the number 1 tackle in the class. Like I thought your offense line was really bad. It's like, oh, the quarterback, like you said, he had a good combine. It's like, wait a minute, trying to piece all the puzzle together there. But Luther Burden was just an underutilized prospect throughout Missouri, and I fear it definitely costed him draft capital. I don't think you can take him. I mean, I don't think any receiver outside of Travis Hunter should be locked into the top 10. I know Ted McMillan, the Panthers at 8 might make some sense, but I worry about this receiver class in general compared to the other positions that we need. But when it comes to Burden, I compared him to like to me, when he lines up out wide, he reminds me of DJ Moore coming out, where he's physical, but not like overly aggressive. He's not way the superior athlete, but he's athletic enough. Like DJ Moore has always felt like a poor man's Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase is the same frame, but just better, like the elite at all of it.
Yeah.
And Luther Burden out wide reminds me of just, he's good. He's got a lot to work on. And then when he moves inside, I see Victor Cruz. Just the way he bursts when the ball hits his hands and he sees green grass is not something that a lot of players have. I would love to get him in the second. Like, he would be the player that I would be targeting if Carolina somehow found a way. Like, if we randomly traded up, I would be happy with him. I just also know he's a guy that, like, you have to have a plan for day one, and then going forward, you have to open that door to have him struggle a little bit out wide. Like, he may. I'm not, like, the film doesn't show he should, but it's also just, there's a lack of it. It's just, it's a weird thing with Missouri this past year. I mean, he was a 5-star coming out of high school. I also expect the Jaguars to be very high on him. They're a team that I would be shocked if they don't go grab, because of that GM that they got, where, if you've noticed, the Rams, they try to pick players that are really good coming out of high school. They try to get, like, the 5-star kids, or try to, like, maneuver some pair ups with Verse and Fisk like they did last year. And this GM supposedly led the train on Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams. So 5-star athlete that slips. Think the Jaguars might be in on that, to pair him with Brian Thomas, where they complement each other pretty well.
That would be crazy. You brought up a good thing just about the way that he moves when he gets the ball in his hands. I was told a long time ago from somebody, when say, when you're watching football, right? Like, we all want to be able to quantify everything and be able to put down, this is what this guy does at this level, right? This grade, this numerical value, whatever it is. Sometimes it is also just as simple as when you're watching football, you see a guy that moves different, that just jumps off the screen. He's faster with the ball in his hands than he is any other time, right? Don't disregard that. You want to take that into account when you're like, this guy just looks faster. He looks better than everybody else. Like, I can't quantify it, but he moves different than everybody else on the field. And Luther Burden is that kind of player for me, where I understand the reasons for being cautious when you're, like, projecting him as an outside, or even as, like, a volume one, as a boundary player or anything like that. Totally understand that hesitation to do that, but he has shown the abilities. He just hasn't been asked to do it at a volume or a high level. And I think that the NFL may look at him and say, we want him to do that. So good points. I like that.
It's a draft class where, like, we're loaded at some positions, and it's the receivers are just, like, it's tough. it's a tough class to say, based, because I'm just naturally, I compare it to last year, and, like, Brian Thomas would be
crazy.
Probably be the runaway one in this class, and it's like, or I mean, with Tet, but his combine would have blown him out of the water. And Brian Thomas was a guy that I remember mentioning, like, this guy, if he found his way to the Chiefs or the Bills, the deep ball would be back, because he just runs goes better than anybody, and then he runs curls. Those are the two routes he needs. And at Jacksonville last year, like, the goes, he ran some slants that were incredible, but dude is an absolute freak. I'm excited to see what he does in year 2.
So what is Tet McMillan, or T-Mac, I guess I should say, because he doesn't want to go by Tet. That's not the nickname. I heard it's T-Mac. So T-Mac, when we talk about this being a down year, right, for the wide receivers in general, and that doesn't mean, though, that some of these guys can't be terrific NFL players. It just means that the evaluation of a prospect, right, is going to come in lower than the guys previously. But for a guy like Teteroa McMillan, if let's play the hypothetical thing you brought up, Jordan. We're all Panthers fans. We all want to talk about it anyways. What could T-Mac bring specifically to Carolina and Bryce Young, but also just in general as a prospect? What does he do really well? People say he's not a very good route runner. That's what I see people try to complain about. I think that for a guy his size, which is always that little asterisk and that caveat that makes people uncomfortable, because then you're excusing that maybe he's not an elite route runner. You don't have to be if you're 6'5", 6'4.5", 220 pounds, right? I think he's better with the ball in his hands than people give him credit for. I think he's, again, one of those guys that when you watch him, without trying to quantify it, he's got some great examples of moving really well for a dude his size. So what do you think about it, man? Lay down the law of T-Mac with Carolina.
I like a lot of things about T-Mac's game. I think he is a 1A, 1B type of receiver. There's players that are clear ones, and to me, there are players that I think will be more of the 1A, 1B. You want that complementary two with them. Like Xavier Legette and Ted McMillan would be a very good duo to have because they would be two players that you would, I mean, everybody, they would be two players that are big body dudes that are tough to deal with just from a size perspective. And Ted McMillan for Bryce Young would give him a red zone guy. Like, this is a guy you can go to, and it doesn't matter if he's covered. It doesn't matter where you put it. You just got to give him a chance to make a play. I talked to Rhett Lashley at the Senior Bowl 2 years ago, and when Rashee Rice was there, and he said, I don't call him a 50-50 guy. I call him a 70-30 guy because there's no 50-50 balls that go his way. And for Ted McMillan, like maybe contested catch based on PFF's knock or different things, he may not be the elite in the class. I remember seeing some stats about that nonsense. Watch where Noah Fafita is putting the ball because there's a lot of times where he's making attempts that are just insane. And there's a lot of catches he made that were just like a hairline short of being called catch because of his footwork. But like, you don't see players at his size have the understanding of where to go with their feet on the sidelines. You don't see players like that are going to be great route runners. If he were a great route runner, he'd be the number one pick in the class. It's just, put it simply. And again, the people want to talk about what he can't do. The comp is Drake London to me. And again, Drake London's a guy that I think is a 1A, 1B player. He's not a true number. Like, he's not a guy that a team is going to completely game plan for. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that he can't blow up a game or have a big game. It just means he's not Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like, he's not those guys. And I wouldn't hate T-Mac at 8. I wouldn't necessarily love it. And the only reason is I want to see what we do with Millen Williams and some of these other big name D tackles because we have to stop the run. And I know Bryce getting a number one receiver would be cool. Not next year, the year after that might go down as one of the best receiver classes we've seen. Ryan Wingo at Texas, Ryan Williams at Alabama, and Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Those three 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids are some of the best true freshman receivers I've ever watched. And I watch from a high school perspective too, of just like, oh my God, I want one of these guys to just be on my team already. And there are other guys in the works, Josiah Trader, who's at the University of Miami, that this year I fully expect that, oh my God, where did this guy come from here? He was the number 2 receiver for Jeremiah Smith in high school. And in the state championship, he had 3 touchdowns in like 180 yards. While Jeremiah Smith didn't have a catch because the team that they played literally played him like a punt gunner. Like it was on punt with Jeremiah Smith because that's the best way they had. And Josiah Trader was like, okay, and just, scored 3 touchdowns at halftime. So I don't think this is a class to get the number 1 guy receiver. And it sucks because it's, you want Bryce to get his guy. But I just want players that are, right now understand where to be and how to play. Because Bryce showed last year, he knows what's in front of him now. He knows what's coming. In our offensive line, massive improvements. So give me guys that are just knowing and on the same page as him. And that's continuity. Coker, Legette, Thielen. It's not the answer long term, but it's an answer for now. So
while you guys are talking, I'm updating some of the things that are going on. One of the bigger ones that dropped was Steelers are getting close to signing Aaron Rodgers.
Really?
That was from a Steelers reporter. There's nothing fully reported yet, but they're saying they're nearing it because Justin Fields wanted to test the free agent market, so they pivoted to Rodgers and Sam Darnold.
Robert Spillane to the Patriots. That's a thumper. I love that guy. I wish
and
we
then
would have gotten him.
and then we had, what was the other one that I saw? Javon
Kinlaw to
Kinlaw,
the 49ers. Or sorry, the Commanders, which is
Commanders.
they got the 49ers GM, her old president or
So
whatever.
quiet so far on the Carolina Panthers front, huh? I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, I think, were expecting like a big splash right away, right? Whether it was from Milton Williams, who you talked about, or Josh Sweat, the other Philadelphia Eagle that's a free agent from that defense. Is there a target that you have with the Panthers, Jordan, that you're like, that's the guy that I would want? If we can't bring anybody else in, that's the guy that I would want.
Oh, Milton Williams for sure.
Okay.
He's a young player that I think would play very well with Derek Brown. He's got the age there that, like, I know, like, I want to build a good team and I want to have a great roster. But I also know we better hit in the draft. That is going to be the key to building a good roster. Because if you look at the Eagles, they're not a good roster because of Saquon and Zach Bond. They're a great roster because of Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, and Cam Jurgens. And then obviously they just crush the freaking buy low free agents, and their offensive line coach is the best offensive line coach probably ever. Right, came there as the Patriots guy that was there for like 40 years with Brady. Those two are just incredible. So you gotta hit in the draft. But as far as this free agency, Milton Williams would be the one. I would like to get Raekwon Davis too. I know he's just a big dude that hasn't put it all together by any stretch, but he is. I like a little bit of there, and Dre Greenlaw too. He's up there because he loves football. You just the passion that he plays with is something we're missing up front. And him with Josie Jewell and the Kentucky kid, I can't think of his name right now.
Trevin Wallace,
would be a nice just rotation of backers that love football.
We had somebody in the chat that said, honestly, Tet reminds me of Keon Coleman, just in a bad wide receiver class. Is that something that you see at all, Jordan?
I mean, I get where he's coming from the cool catches point, but Tet McMillan has put up back-to-back like 1,400 yard carries. Like Keon Coleman doesn't have. It's what Keon Coleman wants to be. Like I like Keon Coleman too. I think he's a very good player that again was a developmental piece. This guy was a D1 basketball player as well at Michigan State. He was the number one receiver on a team with Jaden Reed on that roster, and as a sophomore or true freshman, which is just very like it speaks to his pedigree. Like
very impressive.
There's just this last year's draft class I coined as probably one of the best I've ever seen scouted, and it just was more development guys. Like it wasn't just purely like the way that Jarvis Landry class with Odell and like all these guys are already what they're going to be right away. This is a class that's like we just need some time for some of these guys to turn out. While the Lad McConkey, Malik Neighbors, Marv, all the dudes that they had last year. So I don't think Keon Coleman is a good comp there. I don't think Keon Coleman would be. I think he'd probably reach my tier 2, or I guess with that Matthew Golden, Luther Burden tier, but he'd be in the bottom of that one.
So, Tet, you have McMillan in a tier on his own in this class, I'm assuming then.
What?
I would assume you have McMillan in a tier in his own then, right, in this class.
Oh, well, no, I have Travis Hunter ahead of him. Travis Hunter's in a tier, and then it's Tet. And
I have a hard time
with him.
I have a hard time remembering the Travis Hunter wide receiver thing, just because of all of the talk about cornerback, and that's where they want to play him. But it's a great reminder that if he were to play wide receiver full time, he clears easily as wide receiver 1 in this class.
Yeah, no, he is. If he played receiver, I think he'd be a mix of Diggs and Odell.
Ooh. That's
it's a high lofty comp for him. Him playing corner makes it unfair to the corner in front of him. he reads feet so well, and just the contested catches, the crazy stuff that he's able to make happen are immaculate. And at Colorado, like he played 90 snaps and it wouldn't matter. In the fourth quarter, he's just bombing corners. And it's like, dude, you're running all like you ran multiple miles today. Like that is
Yeah.
just not a not a thing.
It's not a common occurrence, man. I mean, that's when you talk about a freak athlete. That's it. I mean, that is the definition.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, other wide receivers though in this class, we've talked a little bit about the big names. But Jordan, you don't just focus on the big names; you focus on everything. So give me a couple other players of this group. Now it could be Panther specific if you want, and we know who your original draft crush was that we were going to talk about today before we made this decision to pivot, right? Let's talk about him a little bit. I'm not going to blow up the secret and spill the beans. I want you to do that. But then there's other guys. I personally would love to hear your opinions on Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel as well, because those are two of my absolute favorite. And I know that Edgar is a fan of Jalen Noel as well.
So Kyle Williams is one of my favorite prospects in this entire draft class because of that day 3 grade that I see a lot of people give. First off, the years at UNLV I don't really care about at all. UNLV was a very, very bad program at the time. Like they're not a passing offense, whatever. And as a true freshman, he got on the field and was one of their best players. He goes to Washington State and plays with Cam Ward. He's the number 1 receiver for Cam Ward. The one thing that he was missing in that junior season was yak. He did not show the ability to break a tackle. And that was something that was a big concern for me. But if you watch his previous year's film, he displays that all over the field. He reminds me so much of a actual person who was on the Panthers this year, of Deontay Johnson. And Deontay Johnson, coming out of college from Toledo, was dealt with bad quarterback play. And there's a lot of like, is he really that special? No, this kid's not a special player. He's not a Puka Nacua or any of those like, oh my God, this guy turns into one of the best. However, he's a very good player. He runs a 4.4. He has a frame that's he's like 6 foot. He's 190 or I think 200 pounds. Like he doesn't have any flaw to his game.
Mm-hmm.
And he adds an element that he can play in the slot. He can play out wide. I think he's going to struggle a little bit against like press man coverage. How many teams are playing that nowadays? It's not many. I don't really care about that. Situationally, going to a Super Bowl or something, I'd be a little afraid. But like, that's not what you're trying to get there. You're trying to get good players in your team. I think a Deontay Johnson level comp is where I have for him right now. And that's just a great, value. And especially in day 3, Carolina could use it. I just don't know if I love it there because I like Coker a lot. Like I liked what I saw from him. So it's kind of like, let him continue to get reps.
Right.
I would rather chase a 1 than try to add another 2 or 3 to this roster. I think a team like Kansas City would be a fun one to see because I know Worthy, Rice, their legal issues. Hollywood got brought back, but they're missing that just player that can get it done. And he does it at all 3 levels. His hand-eye coordination on like over shoulder catches is spectacular. Cam Ward found him so much on those types of plays. And when you watch the film with Cam Ward, not so much John Mateer, he knows the coverage. He is very good with his route depth. He's very good at following, like, oh, I'm not open here. Let me move. Like, and Cam Ward and him had that connection. So if you draft Cam Ward, like Tennessee would be another team I'd love. I would be all over it. They took Cam Ward 1 and they found themselves the Kyle Williams in, round 4. And I would be in fantasy football. I'd be all over Kyle Williams because I think he'd be the number 2 receiver behind Calvin there.
So situation is going to matter for him a good bit. And not that situation doesn't matter for every prospect. It does. Yeah. But for some guys specifically, like a Kyle Williams, that it's not necessarily the physical limitations, but it's where he can win with the most success, right? And I think that for Kyle, you make a really good point about that. He can play outside. And with all the off coverage, the cover 3 that teams are playing nowadays, he's going to get open releases. Like he's not going to have somebody jamming him. We talked about the physical stature. His combine measurements, he was 5'10 and a half, 190 pounds. So he probably slimmed down a little bit for running, right? So maybe his playing weight is right around what you were talking about, right around that 195, 200 pounds at about 5'11. That's a good size for a guy that runs a 4.4 40. Had a 36.5-inch vertical, so the explosiveness is there from an athleticism standpoint. I like him, and I think that you bring up a nice point too about the value in that particular round and the guys that are going to be around him in the draft. I think he's the only one that has that explosive yak ability in his profile in that area, right? Because you could talk about Luther Burden all we want, but Luther's going to be a much higher pick. He's going to have a much higher investment tied to him. So if you're looking for that kind of, I don't want to say budget pick, because I don't think that Kyle Williams is necessarily a budget player, right? That makes him sound like he's bad, like you're getting him at a Big Lots. But hey, sometimes Big Lots has really cool shit, man. Like sometimes I like to go to Big Lots, right?
No, yeah. And as for the Iowa State guys, I think they're just perfect day 2 prospects. Their athletic measurables are incredible. What they did at the combine, and I hated the Senior Bowl highlight tape for them because it was just a little frustrating from how long it took to do some of those things. And
you don't like drills, the 32 step release? You don't like those?
It doesn't translate.
I also hate when a corner is giving you inside leverage and you win on a slant. Like, congrats! Like, that's
right.
I see. Like, you gotta those Senior Bowl highlights. Like, I saw some people comping Tez and Jalen to like Tank Dell, and I watched Tank Dell in person on the field of that. No, it's not even remotely comparable what that kid could do with his hips and the way he turned those corners. Or like Lad McConkey last year. It's like Jalen Noel is a very good player. Jaden Higgins is a very good. They're both very talented players. I've seen them get locked up in college. As a college football DFS person and someone works in different things on Saturdays, I've watched a lot of Iowa State football because they're usually on the slate because that's just how things go there. There's a lot of corners that were able to just cover them. They do win. They do win enough. I don't think they're end of first round prospects. I think they're a mid day 2 guys. And I think I would love to see Jaden Higgins go to Dallas and play next to CeeDee Lamb, be the boundary for that type of team. Jalen Noel, there's a lot of plug and play spots. It just depends on, do you want him to be a pure slot? Do you want him to be out wide? Like there's a few spots that I could see him going to, especially like the Jets would be one that I think would be a nice add to Garrett Wilson. Doesn't make him maybe a good player for real life because the Jets quarterback situation, but nice pair there. Arizona would be a good one. Pair him with Marvin Harrison, let him be what you want Greg Dortch to be. I don't think he interferes with Trey McBride or Marv in any way of how he wins and the way he wins. So yeah, that mid day 2 range is where I think these Iowa State guys will go, because maybe New England, but I don't think you want to draft a player that I don't think can step in to be a 1. I think these are 2 guys that I think are 2s. I don't think they're 1A, 1B guys. I think they're wide receiver 2s, maybe even wide receiver 3 if things don't pan out with your quarterback. But as of right now, just good players to add to your team.
So that's where you see Jaden Higgins too at the next level, because I've seen I know Matt Harmon recently had discussed him being more of he can win a power slot. That may be his best alignment usage is out of the power or out of the slot. And Jaden, his physical profile, obviously the 6'4", long arms, 220 pounds, decent long speed. He's not as bursty of a player. Like he's not that first 10-yard split. You could see it with his 40 time, right? Like that's not where he gets his thing. It's not his get off. It's not right off the line of scrimmage. He's got to build his speed. He needs that. So do you see him as a prototypical X, or do you think that he's kind of, I love his versatility, to be honest. I think he can win at any 3 alignments that you want to put him at. I think you can make him or give him some easier releases as like a move Z. I also think that if you do line him up in the slot, you've got an instant mismatch if you're playing against a smaller nickel because of his physicality and his ability to get over the top and use his arms to extend. But I think when you draft a guy 6'4", 220 who's getting comped to Nico Collins, you want him to play outside, right?
Yeah, you want him to win in that way. I don't think he could break and be physically dominant like Nico is. And also with Nico, the dude was like the number 2 or number 3 player coming out of high school. He had the pedigree, the hype, and Michigan was obviously just a terrible program at the time for receivers, but Higgins, I don't think he can give you that. I do think it is nice that he could definitely move inside and give you some of those types of looks.
Mhm.
And for the way the NFL is moving, I think we're going to be more of a run league than people realize in the next 5 years because of all the undersized corners and linebackers that have come into the league. It's time to go back to bully football, which the Eagles kind of just showed. And that's why linebackers got paid this past free agency, because teams were preparing to need those types of Nick Boltons that can be physical and then also cover a elite type of tight end. So with Higgins, I don't think it's very dependent on the team drafting him, where it's like make him the X for Dallas. Like let CeeDee Lamb be in the slot a lot more. Let him play like Justin Jefferson plays. Like CeeDee Lamb kills people. It's just a nightmare matchup for that. If you go to like Arizona, I think you could make him a power slot in that type of team. You could say, let's play bully ball. Let's get a 6'4" Marv out wide, a 6'4" Jaden Higgins in the slot. What are you going to kind of like, how are you going to kind of react to that? Similar to what Pittsburgh's doing with DK Metcalf and George Pickens. Like, I don't think either of them are going to go inside, but just two big body dudes. Good luck trying to figure out with your, like JC Horn would be nice to cover those guys. But if you go back to our second corner, it's like, oh no, we have Captain Munderland out there. It's going to be a problem.
Well, if teams are looking to go back into a little bit more of like a ground and pound type of offense, right, to abuse some of these smaller defenders that are coming in, Jaden Higgins also offers a pretty willing blocker. And a guy that can use that length of his arms, to kind of to help in that ground game. So I think that makes a lot of sense too for teams that do have an emphasis on the run. Maybe Carolina Panthers. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying.
57 would be not a bad pick. If we because 57, he would be falling to me.
Yeah,
and like he would be the lesser. He's more athletically gifted, Tet, but he doesn't. Like just be like Tet at worst can just win by purely being bigger. Like I think that Kelvin Benjamin rookie season, he could literally just be like. Hopefully he doesn't gain that much weight. That would be ridiculous. But that type of size, like, he could. Oh my god, I wanted Allen Robinson so bad. I'll never forgive us for that pick. That was one of the most frustrating. And then we almost got him. He almost fell to us in the second that year. And I was out of it. But going to it, just like I don't think Jaden Higgins is bust proof. I think his floor is very low, which is tough to draft in the second. But the second round receivers, it's really been about landing spot with a lot of these guys. Like and it's teams that churn out receivers. Like the Steelers just freaking there's left to right, just finding that second round guy that turned into a good to great wide receiver. Obviously, they have some misses with not Justin Blackman. James Washington, was it? The Oklahoma State receiver?
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that was the one that I think they'd missed on, but like Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Antonio Brown, Manuel Sanders. Like, there's usually a team that just finds a great receivers coach and a way to make these guys get into a role. And I feel like for Higgins and Noel, those are two guys that need that. And the Rams, they have their receiver coach that recruited them. I would be shocked to see the Rams not take one of those guys in day 2 if they can fall to them.
So I just got a text that Milton Williams to Carolina, they're finalizing the deal. I haven't seen the report, or there it is. Milton Williams to Carolina.
Nice.
That's a good one. That's a good signing. So what does that do? So what does that do here? All right, let's talk about draft ramifications, right? I have to remind myself that we're on Draft Crush, so this is an NFL draft show because we're just waxing poetically right now about the Panthers, but I know that not everybody cares about that. Milton Williams to Carolina, though, could have a slight impact on like the draft landscape potentially, especially when you talk about pick 8, because if you're looking at like a guy like, and I'm not of the mindset that I would take Mason Graham off of the board for the Carolina Panthers, right? If he were to fall to 8, I'm still running the card up and I'm drafting Mason Graham, and I'm doing what the Philadelphia Eagles have done, and I am stacking that defensive front so that every single snap you're getting hell from my 4 guys up front or my 3 guys, whatever it may be. You're getting a barrage of physicality and speed. If you look at this though and say, okay, what if they don't want another 3 tech? right? Because right now they've got Ashawn Robinson, Derek Brown, Milton Williams, if this signing goes through. I think all of them are best suited at the 3 tech. They still are probably in need of finding a bigger body, interior nose type of archetype. I don't know that they're really playing out of base all that often, though, with Evero, that you need that at a high draft pick. So what does this do? Does this open up Tet a little bit more if you shore up the defense for Carolina in free agency?
Oh, I think it opens up Tet and opens the idea of, I mean, obviously moving back would be freaking great in this class.
Yeah.
If we can find a way to get another day 2 pick,
Mm-hmm.
all for it. But yeah, it definitely opens the door for Ted. It also kind of tells me I don't think we believe Mason's going to be there. I didn't think that was going to happen anyways, but I think it opens the door to safety class. Like we desperately, like a Malachi Starks, the dude is just a top 10 player to me in this class. You can cover the slot, you can play your boundary, he can play halves. He's Georgia bred, and if you heard his interviews, you see a dude that understands the game. Like he has high level knowledge. Safety class is a little deep, so maybe 8 might be tough to swallow, but we need that. We need an absolute stud in the secondary, and he would be able to be that person for us.
So you're not scared off by Malachi Starks only running a 4.5 40. That doesn't make you think that he's a bad football player.
Oh my god! If the 40 was the tell tall or tell sign for everything, we would. The 40 is always, it's just so overblown.
We would have drafted our franchise cornerback in Kalen Barnes a couple years ago if the 40 was dictating. Right?
Yeah, we got or was it Amari Barno who ran like a 4?
Yeah, that's it.
4. Yeah,
and Brandon Smith, man, we would have the best team in the NFL if we were going off of the 40.
Yeah, I mean, Miami might be a tough competition though. They love speed. They don't
a lot of speed there. A lot of speed. All right, so is Malachi Starks, is that a guy that you think should be on the Panthers' radar then? And is that strictly a trade back type of target for you?
I would like to be a trade back target because it just depends. Like, I'd have to see the first 7 to digest it, but I wouldn't hate taking him over Tet. I would be like, okay, if we took him over Mason Graham, I'd be pretty mad. That would be tough pill to swallow there. But I think Tet I would be okay with it. Trying to think of who else. Will Johnson, I'd be okay with it. I didn't like Will Johnson last year when everybody was telling me he's a top 3 pick. I thought he was overrated. Like, I thought he was overrated given what their D-line was. It's like, he did do well in coverage.
So you're thinking of like a chicken and an egg type of situation.
Like, it's like telling me, like, watching the Super Bowl and being like, Cooper DeJean shut them down. It's like, did you watch Mahomes? It's really easy to play corner when your defense linemen are killing it. I want to see what we paid Milton. That's the one that is
I haven't seen that yet.
Because I saw Doug said, what grade would you give the Williams signing? Like, I love them. I want to know how much we paid for them. Like, that's the
you gotta think, and you gotta think they paid a Panthers tax, right? That's what we always talk about: is do you pay the Carolina Panthers tax?
Yeah, I mean,
it's over $20 million a year.
That's good.
I mean, is there even a number that would make you think this is a bad deal? 30, maybe?
I think 30 something, 34. Like in the third, if I see a 3, I'll be pretty upset.
Yeah,
but if it's like 25 million a year, that's fine. Like 15 million less than Myles Garrett, it makes sense. Like, I know he's a different position, but like, they're a good player. They make impact. Like, if Myles Garrett had a Milton Williams next to him, it would be a lot easier to do his job.
Yeah, I can't find anything. They're working to finalize a deal. That was 43 seconds ago by Pro Football Talk. It looks like maybe they do not have terms yet.
Yeah, I have a Diana Rossini saying they're working. Yep. Adam Schefter says they're working on it, but must be close enough for them to mention it.
I just turned on alerts for Adam Schefter on ESPN app.
Yeah, that's what I should be doing over here on Blue Sky right now, right? Because I can't get anything to happen on Twitter, but Blue Sky is cranking it right now.
Jordan Lewis to the Jaguars.
Oh, that's not bad.
Let me give you guys a break real quick. Let me first of all, we have on my last count, like close to 300 that were joining us for our conversation today. So thank you for those who are watching. If you're following, subscribing, watching on YouTube, I know Doug and CJ are regulars. Thanks for joining us. And then just free agency wise, just running it down for people who are just catching up or can't see Twitter. Here's what we've collected so far. Probably the biggest signing when free agency opens. Center Drew Dahlman signs with the Bears. Wide receiver Chris Godwin resigns with the Bucks for a 3-year deal. Offensive tackle Jalen Moore signs with the Chiefs. Hassan Reddick signs with a Panthers rival in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Braxton Berrios signs with the Texans. Running back Elijah Mitchell signs with the Chiefs. Defensive lineman B.J. Hill resigns with the Bengals. Big-time contract for Javon Kinlaw, signing with the Commanders. Robert Spillane joins Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. Jordan Lewis, we just mentioned, signing with the Jaguars, being one of the higher-paid nickel cornerbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo resigns with the Rams. Paulson Adebo, big-time corner get for the New York Giants. Dan Moore, with also a giant contract for him, signs with the Titans. Derek Barnett, defensive lineman, resigns with the Texans. And then the big one that we just are chatting about, defensive lineman DL1 Milton Williams signs with the Panthers.
Carlton Davis to the Patriots. 3 years, $60 million.
Dang.
Him getting $20 million a year makes me feel really happy about JC Horn.
Yeah, are you kidding me, man? That's a $5 million annual difference for Carlton Davis and JC Horn.
Yeah.
Nice job, Dan Morgan. I don't care what you do the rest of the day. Nice job, Dan and Brand.
Oh, dude, I love paying a premium player that I know. Like, I know he's good. It's just It's literally all about, can he be
staying healthy? That's
if he's healthy, he'll be a top 5 corner in football. But doing it before Sauce and McDuffie makes life so much easier.
And man, like everyone worries about paying all this money to these premier players. You have to. Big time players are going to cost big time money. The way that you have to deal with that, though, is you have to hit on your draft picks, because you can't continuously sign free agents for those premium prices. You have to be able to get really talented, good football players in at a cost controlled measure for an amount of years, right? So that you can have a plan. It's the only way to build a plan. Your plan can't be going into every single year saying, all right, now we need this player or we need these positions filled in free agency. It's going to cost you a boatload of money, man. But when you get a guy like JC, you lock him down, you can start looking at the draft and say, all right, Trey Amos, if you're sitting there in round 2 for us, we believe that you can be our cornerback 2 for the next, 5-6 years. And we could do it for a nice cost controlled measure. I'm just not worried about the money, man. And also, it's not my money, guys. It's not me, and it's a billionaire's money. He's got lots of it. The NFL has lots of it. Like, let him pay him, dude.
Also, I think about most people don't look at how things are structured, and so people say, "Oh, we only have X amount of salary cap this year." It's like you could spread it out, you could move it, you could incentivize it. Void years.
What was you guys talked about the big contract for Kinlaw? What was the money that the Commanders gave him? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
$15 million a year.
Yeah, 15 mil.
45 that's total 3 year.
That's significant. So I'm wondering, Milton's going to have to clear that pretty easily then, I would guess. Right?
I assume 22 at the minimum, if I had to guess. Like $7 million a year, like almost 50% more.
You made an interesting point, too, that you thought that this could potentially, not that it does, but it could potentially signal, too, that the Panthers don't feel terrific about Mason Graham falling to 8. They might view that and say, hey, we're getting a pretty good read on the league that Mason Graham is going to be off in those picks. Maybe that's why they prioritize Milton Williams over Josh Sweat. Is that kind of what you're thinking then?
Yeah, I would rather have Milton Williams than Josh Sweat. Yeah. Milton Williams just sears, edge rusher in this class is a lot easier to find than being the mature physical presence of Milton Williams right now today. And Josh Sweat benefited playing next to the 4 guys across from him. Milton Williams was one of those guys for me. I think Milton Williams as a D tackle is better than Jordan Davis. And he wasn't better than Jalen Carter, obviously, but he was the guy that if Jalen Carter was off the field interior, you had to account for him, and pairing him next to Derek Brown, who is supposed to be that guy for us this upcoming season, will be in one. And if anybody wants to ever, look at contracts and figure out oh, like, this guy got this money. Just look at Jalen Hurts' contract, because Howie Roseman is just hilarious with what he does and the big number that hits. In 2029, Jalen Hurts' cap number is $97 million. It's a void year.
Yeah.
AKA, when we get here, you're not touching that.
Right.
Like, don't worry. We'll figure that out in 2029 if you're healthy.
So where are you playing Derek Brown then on this front? Are you going to try to move Derek Brown over to nose and base, or are you going to move Ashawn Robinson possibly? Because you're not going to have Milton, right? Milton's got to be a 3-tech.
I don't think you put Derek Brown at base or in nose. You put him on the opposite side, and we need, a nose tackle that I would love to get if we're going to actually use it the way that we've been trying to do.
Right.
Deion Walker from Kentucky. The dude is just so big. I don't care about his pad height, because everybody talks about that, and it's like, have you seen him? Do you understand why it's not easy to keep his pads down? Because he's 6'7", 340, and watch the Ole Miss game. Watch what he did to Jackson Dart in that Ole Miss offensive line interiorly. And he's a guy that we could get in probably the late third. Like, not every team. Like, there's only probably like 10 teams in the league that could actually draft him and be comfortable playing him right away. And I think we would be, one of those teams that I would love to see, because put him as just eat blocks, buddy. Just take centers and make their life's a problem while everything else goes around you. Just be a wall, so that linebackers on our team do not get bodies on them, because as I watched with even the greatest linebacker that we've ever had, Luke Kuechly, that Steelers game with Le'Veon Bell, when those guards got to him, it was an issue in just those games. Every time we play the Steelers, and I know this because one of my best friends is a Steelers fan, so we never play them well, and I don't like playing them, because even when we have the great teams, it just like, for whatever reason, we just get blown out, and it's not fun. The Cam Newton hit.
Yeah, and there's also just a ungodly amount of Steelers fans in Charlotte. Like, I have no idea how it happened. We're a transplant city. Yeah, but they're everywhere, man.
Yeah, they know because Dolphins games, if you Dolphins play the Steelers, it's like a Steelers home crowd. Like, it is insane.
Good point here by Sam in the chat as well, when we were talking about the big money allocations to players. So some people worried about what we paid for our guards last year. Were they worrying at the end of the year? I mean, that's it. The money doesn't matter. You could give good money as long as it's being used appropriately, as long as the players are matching it with their play on the field, right? You're only ever overpaying if the players don't perform up to the contract. So you get what you spend, right? We got Milton Williams. I think that's a terrific signing for the Carolina Panthers. Is that probably the biggest one that you were hoping for, Edgar? Is a defensive lineman in free agency?
Absolutely. I think that I'm a trenches guy. We've talked about it. You got to win inside. You got to win. Even Dan Morgan said it at the combine. You got to win in the trenches first, or overall. Everything else breaks down, right? And so, I mean, we've been talking about it over and over again about how terrible the run defense was, the pass rush. We haven't had interior pass rush in Carolina since, I don't know, K1 Short, those days.
Oh my God, that draft class was. I remember when we got Star and K1. I was so happy. I was like, oh, cool, build it.
and maybe they're able to do something similar this year, right? They got pick 8. Maybe they go with Jalen Walker or Mikael Williams, the two Georgia guys that everyone seems to be very high on, or even Mason Graham, and then you go, an edge in the second. I mean, that could be a really fun thing to double dip on defensive line or edge in these first 2 rounds of this draft. Particularly,
this draft is loaded, man. Like, this is one of those classes. I mean, it's loaded at 2 positions with running back or D line and running back, and it makes me really, really sad about the Jonathan Brooks pick. But that's besides the point. And
did you like Jonathan coming out last year? Were you high on Jonathan Brooks?
I liked him. I didn't want to trade up for him, and I don't like the fact that I'm staring at this running back class and I'm like, is he a top 5 running back in this class? It's close. Like,
yeah, I would have him at 4. I
it's
did my number ranking. I'd have him at 4, so it's close.
That doesn't feel good.
Right.
Like, it just, again, it's unfortunate that he got hurt. That's the reality of it. That's just terrible for our sake, because these like one thing about prospects that do get hurt, that's the one area I can't ever label a guy a bust, is like if you're a prospect, you got hurt and you weren't the same player, I'm never going to look at you as a bust. It's just one of those things that just won't ever be the way I label you. It's like, some athletes don't recover well. Like, not everybody's Adrian Peterson and can play 8 months off the ACL and run for 2,000 yards.
Right. Or Thomas Davis, that Panthers fans are familiar with, where you could you tear your knee up 4 different times and you come back even better,
the Super Bowl injury he played with.
Yeah.
That was, wait, are we back? I think Twitter might be back.
Oh, are we all the way back here?
I do want to say a good buddy of ours, name's Corey Puckett. He said he was watching Schefter on TV, and he mentioned the deal for Milton Williams will be over $20 million average annual value. So I don't know how much over 20 million, but we're looking at clearing the 20 million mark.
I also was thinking about it last night. Are the last 2 free agencies the biggest contracts we've ever given out for players that weren't on our team? Like with Hunt and now Milton, and because I'm turning 27 tomorrow, and
you're so young.
Yeah, I didn't get to see. I saw the Jake Delhomme and the Steve Smith, and got me into football and different things. But I was thinking, I can't think of a Panther that I've liked more than what I saw from Hunt last year. That wasn't I guess Greg Olsen, but that was a trade. I don't think that really counts.
No.
Like a pure free, like he chose us because we gave him money, and he went and he freaking crushed. So back-to-back years of getting. I mean, I wanted Hunt. I think I tweeted out a thing about our guards, and I'm gonna find it. It's the number blew my mind, and it made me very sad. It's like let me find it, because it was I think it was something to do with, it was comparing our offensive line interiorly to the Giants in that season, and obviously we know how bad they were. Where was it? No, I gotta find it. It's blowing my mind right now. But I was gonna say, where do you guys think Sam Darnold's gonna end up?
Man, I have zero idea on that. To be completely honest, I can't get a read at all for where Darnold goes. This whole Indianapolis Colts thing with them being tied to Darnold, and even Rodgers at one point was talked about. I don't understand what Indianapolis is doing. I get it. AR did not knock anyone's socks off last season, but they just invested a really high pick in this kid. He's got all the tools. Do you really go and you bring in a guy like Darnold, who you're going to have to pay a ton of money to bring in and is going to be the starter? Is that really the move? Would you do that?
The only team that I think makes sense for Darnold is actually Seattle.
I was thinking too.
It's because it's Clint Kubiak, and it's he looked good in that scheme. He was fine for us before McCaffrey went down, and then we realized we were throwing the ball to Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson
without Christian McCaffrey on the field.
It was looking back, I'm like, wow, we kind of made those were 3,000-yard receivers with DJ Moore. That's crazy to me. But I don't think I'd be willing to pay Darnold the $40 million that he's probably going to get. But if you're Seattle, I think you can do it because of the way they've maneuvered their picks. They can draft O-line. They can just pepper day 1 and day 2 with O-line, which is the only thing that really, Sam Darnold's not good with a bad offense line. Not many quarterbacks are. He's not truly an elevator, but for the Seahawks, you could still be a good team with him, and it allows you to fix that O-line while you're maybe finding his successor. But I found that stat for the Carolina Panthers. In the year before we brought in Robert Hunt, we gave up 26 sacks that were credited to our interior offensive line. 120 pressures from our interior offensive line. There were 11 teams that gave up under 10 sacks from the interior line, and we gave up 26. And then 12 teams that allowed under 70 pressures, we gave up 120. This past year, I don't know the numbers, but I know for a fact we gave up a lot less pressure to that interior. And that Chiefs and Eagles game were two games that I was like, oh my God. We have fun. Like we could actually we're wow, this is crazy. Like
enjoyable.
Yeah, this is totally fun. Like I'm watching the game and it's the fourth quarter and like I have to watch Patrick Mahomes beat us. I'm like, I know he's going to because our defense is not very good. But good job, Bryce. Make him beat us. That's all I ask of you right now. Just be a competitive football player. And yeah, it was really, really fun year. But yeah,
you guys want to see some film?
Film
of Milton Williams?
Yeah, of course. Why not?
I could just put it up. But we've got some people are posting some videos, some highlights of Milton Williams, and so I know you both are good at this stuff, and so if I could just share it on the screen, you guys can kind of talk about what you see and what do you think he brings to the table.
Jesus. That's cool. The first one starts off against the Falcons. That's
right. Nice. You love to see that, right? I need one of those people that are really like technologically advanced to go ahead and hit that jersey swap on a live video and make that a Panther. Just attacking that. But no, you see like his get off. He's got strength right off of the line of scrimmage. I mean, his speed to power is kind of his calling card as well. I think that's what I like so much about Milton, Jordan, is that he is just disruptive in a plethora of ways. He doesn't have he's not an edge rusher, so he's not going to sit there and beat you with double moves or anything like that. But this dude is a physical player. He does have a really quick first step off the line of scrimmage, which I think is something that was noticeably missing from the Carolina Panthers defensive front, is just somebody that puts that pressure immediately. I think that he can do that. I think he's an individual creator and winner. You don't have to have, extensive things drawn up to get him in a position of success. He can do that. That is something I think people wondered about, is how much of his success was tied to being on that Philadelphia Eagles defensive front and how much was he doing on his own. A lot of what you watch, we know that they did not blitz at all, right, in the Super Bowl. We know that was individual, winning reps that created those plays. Milton was responsible for a lot of those big flash plays, man, in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's when I look at him in particular, and I'm watching these highlights, Jalen Carter and Derek Brown, like that is what we're asking Derek Brown to do. Take the center and the guard out of the picture so Milton knows he's not getting any help and it's the person in front of him. And then when he goes east to west, like on these stunts, like you love it. He's quick. He is a very quick D tackle, which is very, very nice to look at. And when you're just watching all these highlights of Milton Williams, the communication right there, cool. And then watch how quick he gets around the edge here, just to put the pressure on, Joe Thuney's playing left tackle. So it's not, but again, pushes him back and then just contains, comes back and gets the sack.
Finishes the play.
It's a player that allows us to have Derek, Brown get doubled and understand he can win.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also young. He was easily the player in this class, the free agent that I'm happy we just went and freaking paid. He's a player that I'm very excited about because our defense line needs that type of dude. And you even see the stand-up edge next to him in the wide nine, or those types of Jadeveon Clowney, what we have right now. That's a player that can help him too. And then they could stun off of each other because the quickness is still there. And, get some pressure, actually stop the run a little bit. I wish we would have saw a highlight of him stopping the run for a second, but getting to the passer is important. I hope we're winning games that we can do that.
and you saw him use too there in those sub packages. He could be one of your two, down linemen in a nickel package or a dime, type of situation, where if you have him and Derek Brown, as opposed to Derek Brown and let's say Ashawn Robinson, right, who's not particularly that pass rusher. That's not what you brought him for, right? But you have Milton and Derek Brown, and then you do any kind of exotic looks, whether Evero decides to start blitzing a little bit more. Maybe we bring in a safety who plays a little bit more in the box, like a Trevon Moehrig. Maybe that's somebody that they look at that can also add that element. Maybe they draft somebody that can do those things, right? Maybe a Jonas Sanker, or maybe, somebody in that range that could provide that element. You can start opening things up because offensive linemen have to account for the fact that Milton Williams is dangerous, man. Like, this dude has to be accounted for. And I don't know that we had that outside of Derek Brown.
I'm seeing now that Mariano Rossini said it is close. It is not done yet for Milton Williams.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I need them to shore that up before I'm sitting here counting all these eggs.
Yeah. And some more cold water to put on it. She also posted other teams around the league are showing strong interest in landing Milton Williams right now. So
we
haven't crossed the finish line yet.
Don't do that. Come on, Dan. Why would we report? Whoever leaked that is so frustrating.
Should we start a GoFundMe right here live on Draft Crush so that we can say, hey, look, we'll pay the extra. Like, just get him in here.
Yeah. I mean, I know money is not a problem with our owner. I know
it is not.
He doesn't care. As long as he's building a good football team, which I've talked to people about when we brought in Dan, not brought in, but Dan became the GM and Brandon Tillis came over and Dave Canales hiring and stuff. And someone compared it to what the 49ers and Jed York did after being the middling owner for Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula, and all of the different guys that they brought in. And then when John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took the job, it was like, all right, you guys can do it. I'm not going to do anything football related. And I feel like, Tepper has actually stepped back, which is nice. And really let the team play like the team. And again, we weren't great this year. Like we were not a very good football team, but we were also, expectations were low. It was kind of like, can we see Bryce Young be okay? That was like the bare minimum goal. And those last 8-9 weeks, fantastic.
They're awesome. Yeah, it's awesome.
It started out rough, but I also credit Dave Canales being able to be like, hey, you're benched. Like, we're going to bench you right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously, Andy Dalton in the accident changed things, but it also allowed Bryce to like, hey, there's no pressure. Like, you're not going to get, taken out. It's you now. Go for it. And he's freaking done what he's needed to do.
What did you think of the idea to retain Ejiro Evero? Because that's kind of been like a split topic of conversation amongst Panthers fans.
I did not want us to bring in anybody on the Saints or the Buccaneers staff because I don't know who Dave Canales has connection to Gus Bradley and like the Seahawks regime and then the Buccaneers. And it's like, look, last year our defense is not good. Our players aren't very good. Like,
right.
It wasn't like, oh my God, we're getting out of gaps and we're getting it's like they're literally just not winning. Like we just don't have like I'm watching our linebackers and we're down to our fourth string linebackers. We're not playing with Josie Jewell or Shaq Thompson or even the Kentucky kid, I believe, got hurt too for a good stretch of that season. Like we were down to fourth string and like we weren't even stronger. And then Derek Brown not being there the whole season, like it was clear that the defense going into the season was a problem. We got more hurt than I thought we were going to. And his scheme relies on very talented players to do their jobs. And when a cover 3 built scheme doesn't have players doing their job or tackling or stopping the run, it just gets blown up. Like it's what happened to the Legion of Boom when they started losing guys. It's like, oh, this scheme is not invulnerable. Like it's every defensive scheme has its flaws, and when you don't have good players, it doesn't matter what your scheme is. So I'm excited to see what the defense looks like this year. I thought it was strange that we fired the entire staff besides him. That was the weird move, but it's also like these are guys, new faces, new things coming in, and maybe he adapts in a way because he was getting head coaching interview. Maybe the Rooney Rule, or maybe not. We'll never know those answers, but. What, our defense was top 10 in football 2 years ago for some reason? Like somehow, like we were actually stopping a lot of teams. And then this past year just went bad because we lost Derek Brown. We lost multiple linebackers. We weren't really good against the run anyways. I'm not thrilled with it, but I also don't think there was a defensive coordinator hire this offseason. I was like, man, I wish we had him. Like,
I did see one thing that is relevant here to the draft stuff. The Patriots have agreed to terms with Morgan Moses, the offensive tackle. It's not exactly a stellar big time thing that's going to get a lot of people talking. But when you look at that fourth pick in the draft, right, they're pegged as like getting offensive line help. That's what we talked about even to start this show. We talked about you can't take McMillan there because of how porous that offensive line is. Does that potentially, if they're not able to push around with their cap room, right? Because everyone thinks that they're the desirable place for, well, first of all, everyone thought DK Metcalf. Then everyone says T. Higgins is going there. And it's because they probably have the emptiest of bags that they can fill up right now in hand to one of these wide receivers. Does that possibly open up the McMillan conversation? Signing an offensive tackle like Moses?
I don't think it should.
Yeah.
And I think they just draft Will Campbell and know that he can move to guard because he may be a guard. I saw him play tackle in college and he was good. A lot of people say he doesn't have a quick enough first step, different that. Like, I see a guy that is just a good offensive lineman, and the Patriots need to add multiple of those. So Morgan Moses gives them the flexibility to, like, hey, you can play at guard for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, Larry Tunsil played guard for his first year or two in Miami, and then they kicked him out wide. Like, I could see that kind of being the path for Will Campbell, not necessarily. Oh, jeez.
Sorry, just more insider information about how
the deal
is not final yet.
God, we got to get the pen to paper. Oh, no, we can't.
Yeah.
Just, we're tampering.
Wednesday, right?
We're
tampering.
we're legally tampering. That doesn't make any just sign players. Let's just
that does make me extremely nervous though, that like it was reported almost as a sure thing, right? Like it was saying that basically
those.
Yeah. Right. That's a wild one to report and then immediately have these coming back. That means somebody came in with that trump card and was like, look, well, and again, maybe it's the Patriots, man. They got all that money. They need help too there on the defensive front. So, that could just be devastating. If this happens to Panthers fans after everyone getting themselves worked up about DK Metcalf and connecting all of those dots, and now all of a sudden Milton Williams, who's been our prime free agent target for this entire thing, if he gets taken away at the last minute, it's going to be really difficult for Panthers fans to see anything with rose-colored shades on for the rest of this free agency period, man. I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah, it's going to be very sad.
Yep.
It makes me think that like maybe he agreed, and this is all just speculation, right? Like, and then other teams are like, hey, like we'll top that or whatever. Well, we can beat that, and he still hasn't like committed to the Panthers yet.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Oh, man. Oh, Derek Barnett back to the Texans.
I saw that 1 year. Yeah.
Is there any other thing? I do love what the Bears did. Now I've more thought about it.
What with the offensive line moves?
Yeah, Dahlman, Thuney, and Jonah Jackson. Just like don't leave it up to a rookie. Like, just dudes. These are all guys that have seen it, have done it. They're not like Thuney's not the player he was, but still a damn good, left tackle or left guard there. And one that even is comfortable playing tackle and getting Ben Johnson all the offensive line pieces he needs. And reminds me of what we just did. But Dave Canales, like, hey, here's these guys. They just have some good receivers.
And you got to wonder too, does that open the door for Ashton Jeanty there? With Ben Johnson and his emphasis on the run game. And now you've got these big, hog mollies that we say in Carolina out in front of them now. So maybe that's a landing spot for him in the draft. I think that's what I love about free agency too, man. We all talk about it, but like these moves have such a huge impact on the NFL draft. All of this stuff is going to change that landscape entirely. Yeah, no,
that's why. Yeah, it's one of those things where betting odds they don't release those true props until after free agency starts going and stuff.
Yep.
I bet the draft on the first week of the NFL. Oh wow, Lions got DJ Reed, 3-year, $48 million. Yeah, that's a really good signing.
Wow, they got him for $348, and Carlton Davis went for
$3 for
20
$60
plus. Wow,
that's crazy.
I think that's a great move for them, man. I also think that DJ Reed might be a better. Well, never mind. Let me not get into that.
Yeah, he's a good. Then Sauce. I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I just think he's a really good football player, man. Like I really think DJ. I think that DJ was being undervalued in this class. I think that a team, and I think that or in this group, not say class. I'm so used to talking draft on this show that I'm just saying class now. But I just think in this free agent group, there wasn't a bunch of like premier players to begin with. And I think that DJ Reed is one of those guys that has an ability to go over and make a significant impact on his new team.
It was really funny that he left the Jets, who have Aaron Glenn, for the Lions.
It's like a little reverse osmosis type of deal.
But the player I thought Genty would be really fun to go to if they can fix more stuff on the O line was the Steelers. Because if they got the Rodgers route and like they're going for it, they're not trying, like Mike Tomlin just doesn't refuse, like he just refuses to be bad. So they were able to get him to that team because like with DK and Pickens, you just can't. Oh, like you got to get teams to get out of the too high shell because you have to, like the teams have to be in that. So getting Genty to Pittsburgh with Warren would be a very, very fun offense there.
You know, one of my craziest spots that I had thought of for Genty that I just absolutely love in a batshit crazy kind of way. It doesn't actually make sense. I can't see it actually happening. But the Indianapolis Colts, this is how you solve the Colts quarterback problem. You draft Ashton Genty, and you just run Jonathan Taylor, Ashton Genty, and Anthony Richardson in a power triple option for the duration of his rookie contract. And you just let him pile drive down people's throat and open up the deep throws, which is about all he was completing last year. So just let him chuck it deep to Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, and he just run the ball.
Man, Anthony Rich, I am so glad we didn't do that. But that's what I was saying. Sorry, sidetrack. After week 1 of college football, I bet Cam Ward and Travis Hunter to go number 1 overall. It was plus 2,500 and plus 2,000. So I'm very, very happy to have those tickets just waiting for.
So there's some more news here. Isaiah Rodgers, 2-year, $15 million contract with the Minnesota Vikings. That is a name that had been linked to the Panthers a couple times by some of our beat reporters. I believe Mike Kay made that connection that would be a good signing. And then Milton Williams, Underdog NFL, just posted this 1 minute ago. Milton Williams is also in talks with the Cardinals and Vikings.
They can't outbid us, I don't think.
The Vikings would be – I know that they have a need on that interior, and if he goes to Brian Flores' system, man.
I know Jonathan Allen's visiting.
Yeah, so Doug just said the same thing. He says now all the reports about Milton Williams are on hold. That is not terrific. I don't love it, man. This did not go.
Not fun.
We were celebrating just a few minutes ago. I thought we were going to be able to end this episode with like a huge like congratulations amongst 3 Panthers fans doing our show together today. And instead now I'm getting the queasy feeling again, man, that like I don't want to look at the computer for the next hour.
I hope the people who leaked that are not allowed in a room anymore.
Yeah,
that's
please.
Not good. Whoever leaked it is the problem here.
Cannot have that person around the draft time either.
I don't think it's Dan's fault here.
No, I think Dan, it seems like probably has the screws to him right now because he had the agreement, had this guy, and now all of a sudden, when it wasn't shored up, somebody else is coming in on that 23rd hour. And man,
yeah,
this is a tough one.
Come on, Dan, lock him in the room.
Lock him in, man.
Do what the Clippers did with.
That's it. Put
DeAndre
the door
Jordan.
in front of the front, or put the chair in front of the front door, man. Don't let it out. You know,
that was one of my favorite things, dude.
Where's Macaulay Culkin to set up all like the booby traps we need when you need them, right? Like just set up all up in front of the doors. Don't let anyone out.
I see a tweet from Jeremy Fowler saying safety Javon Holland still available, but among teams expected to have interest are the Panthers, Commanders, Colts, and Titans.
Don't watch this year if you want to buy in.
Yeah, if you want to see, right.
It was tough.
Do you have a preference on the 2 top safeties? I guess it's Trevon Moehrig and Javon Holland. You got one of those that you like better?
I mean, Holland 2 years ago, awesome.
Dominant. Yep.
It's like I think I've seen a higher upside from Holland, but just the bigger downside compared to to Moehrig. So I'm fine with either. I think either gives us something that we don't have because I think our safety play is hasn't been great since Kurt Coleman was here. So it's been a little bit since we've had some good safety play, which is why I like Malachi Starks at the pick, because I think he's like Xavier McKinney. But he could cover the slot a lot better than Xavier McKinney can, so it'd be pretty fun.
Yep, agreed. All right. So that gets us to a place. Do we want to wrap this one up for the day, fellas, and wait to see what happens for the rest of this news?
Be stressed for the rest of the day now.
There's not a safe place to leave this now, man. Like, I thought we had a really nice, tidy wrap up. Like, Jordan is our good luck charm here on Draft Crush, where the Panthers get what they want. And now I'm very nervous about this.
Oh, yeah. No, we definitely should be a little nervous. Bad fumble by whoever leaked that. That's a problem.
Yep. Gotta patch those holes up, man, or else this ship will go down.
Oh, yeah. I also don't like how honest Dave Canales is. He scares me.
I watched, man.
I watched him. Like, he's just so transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he actually means it. It's not like the fake transparency. It's like, dude, come on, like, don't say stuff.
Somebody, I've seen people saying that they think that the Milton Williams thing was actually leaked intentionally, possibly even by Milton Williams' camp, to try to draw up negotiations because they didn't feel like they got exactly what they were anticipating.
Well, if it was like low 20s, I don't think it is.
And so maybe that's what happened, right? Maybe they agreed in principle on like some sort of almost 20 flat type of deal. And then somebody got in Milton's ear and was like, dude, I think you can get 23, 25 right now. You see what some of these other guys are going for. Maybe hold off.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. And that if that's the case, this could turn into like, we don't have a relationship with him type stuff.
Yep.
And that's where he ends up going somewhere else. If that's the case, I could see it playing out that way, which would be should be tough. But if he's going to operate in that bad faith, then I don't really want to see it.
And it makes the Panthers not be able to like move because they got to like handle this fire.
Yeah.
And they still got other balls to juggle. And so, yeah.
I mean, at least again, if it's that side of things, we'll see. I think that will be something that gets addressed. Like that will be said, which will be like, I don't think that information would stay quiet, but this is tough.
Yeah, I feel like the next notification will be either it's confirmed or the Panthers have decided to move on.
Yeah.
They're going to let other teams negotiate in it, and then we'll see the contract. I mean, if he got 30 million a year, again, it's not my money in the aspect of if we just get good players, that's fine. Right. But 30 million a year would be tough. That would be 50 million up front for us in the middle. Like he's not worth more than Derek Brown. We're just playing on the open market, which is the problem.
You could argue you got Trey Hendrickson out there supposedly available for a third rounder, and 30 million a year is what he would want. And this is a guy who was racking up 17.5 sacks last year. He's been one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. That if that is the thing with Milton, and don't get me wrong, I want to shore up the interior, and I like Milton. He's younger. I get that. Age really doesn't matter all that much to me, though, unless we're talking about somebody being like 34 and you're trying to sign him to a 3-year deal. Like, that's too much. Trey Hendrickson was 30 when he put up 17.5 sacks. I'm not getting scared for a 2 or 3 year deal on Trey Hendrickson. You know what I mean? No. But if you're going to pay $30 million, I also wouldn't oppose doing that to the guy who's proven to me to be an absolute game wrecker on a consistent basis at a position where we need. So,
that super AFC Championship game, they got pressure with 3 through Trey Hendrickson.
Exactly.
That's how they won. That's how they beat Mahomes.
Exactly. Yep. And if it's a matter of a system fit, and you say that Evero's scheme isn't great for him, then maybe we need to have a conversation about which one of those is going to be more valuable to the Carolina Panthers, the 17.5 sacks a year or the scheme that doesn't fit the 17.5 sacks a year.
Yeah, let's adjust our scheme to fit our players. Let's 100%. Not try to put our players in a scheme. That's crazy.
Bingo. If DJ Johnson is the only edge that we could have as an edge in this system, then we need a different system, man.
Yeah.
But they would have to give something up, right? Like they couldn't just sign him for 30. It's 30 plus some draft assets.
Yeah, they'd have to give up a third rounder or something, theoretically. But again, I'm comfortable giving up 74 to bring that in because I don't think that you get a player of Trey Hendrickson's caliber at 74.
I am as well because I've just seen our draft history in the day too.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's just it's tough. Like until they prove that they're drafting well in day 2, I will totally be fine. Like our first round pick, I don't even want to move from 8 to 18.
Right.
With Seattle. Like I did not like. I think there's the chance at the premium player at 8, and on top of it, it's like we got we got a spot where there's a chance Mason Graham falls, there's a chance this falls, and on top of it, there's a chance a team gets quarterback hungry. Like
Right.
I don't think that I don't love the quarterbacks as a whole in this class, but like it only takes one team to like a guy. Like it's
Right.
all it takes.
And you going from 8 to 18, man, it just opens up. Even if you got a guy you're targeting and you believe is going to be there at 18, there's no guarantee. There's 10 picks in between there. And you don't know what the rest of the league wants to do with their picks. Maybe somebody else trades up and jumps in front of you that you didn't foresee. Like if it's a Buffalo team that really wanted a edge rusher, right? And they say, look, we can move up into pick 16 to take him. And they'll come back and we get a little, we have to give up another pick. Then it ruins your plan and you're having to take a contingency player. And that's how we have ended up with the guys like DJ Johnson, to be completely honest, is that we get panicked of a run that's happening and we take the next best available at that position. That's not the strategy. We need BPA, and BPA at 8 is much more appealing, in my opinion, than BPA at 18 in this class.
I just put up another fun draft-related free agency tweet saying from Daniel Jeremiah, if the Bears take Tyler Warden, they would have a dominant 12 personnel offense. That'd be physical and fun.
I'd love that.
Yeah, that's their idea of a Sam Laporta type of move right there, bringing the tight end to kind of run things through.
Yeah, on top of it, they have our second to take the running back.
Sure do.
And then on top of it, like you're getting, the creativity that they've had in Detroit for years. I think Tyler Warren would be the perfect player to get that creativity going. And be fun to see what he ends up being, because I love Tyler Warren. He costed me. I was winning a tournament for 150K, and he knocked me down to 8, which is fantastic. I still made some money, which is awesome. It was the USC game where he had 14 catches for 244 yards or something. God. They were just shovel passing him, and he was gaining like 13 on it.
Basically, what you're saying is that Tyler Warren owes you money when he signs his rookie contract.
Yeah, pretty much. If he would have had 8 for 127 in a touchdown, I would have won. But because he literally scored like 65 DraftKings points, I was like, dude, this is
because he did too well.
Yeah, like you did too. Like it's like watching Jokic play basketball,
right?
Live. Oh, come on, that's a great.
That's a good one.
T-Bone from WFNZ.
Man,
all right.
But
Edgar, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah, I know we're running up it. So like, there's been so many people. I don't know. Twitter's been broken, so there's been quite a few people who have been joining us today and just live reacting to the free agency news. I know we're ending on a down note, but before we close out, Jordan, we just want to thank you so much for being with us, sharing our fandom of draft and the Panthers, and talking about what's going on today. But before we go, for the people that are watching, how can they support you? Where can they see your work? And what are you up to?
Yeah, right now you can follow me over on X/Twitter at Jordan Vanek DFS. I'll usually be posting some sort of receiver graphic with a little breakdown. I'm not doing any full write-ups this year. I'm just hanging out, enjoying some time. When it comes time to the NFL season, I believe I'll be doing college football content again with Roto Grinders. That's where you can hear me talk about how Tyler Warren hurt my feelings. And you can see, some takes. I'm hoping that they release some best ball contests for college football soon, because I love those best ball streets. And last year was pretty close, but this year it'll be a fun one. And you'll just see me tweeting out some DFS work, usually maybe some draft props. We'll see when those things get close. And appreciate you guys having me on. And hopefully we can hold on to Milton Williams, and this is a tough one.
Need it. Jordan, thank you for being on. Happy early birthday as well.
Yes,
celebrate, have a good time with it, man. Thanks for taking the day before and spending an hour and a half just sitting here chopping it up about free agency. it seemed like we were in the dark ages there for a little bit, not being able to get the information quickly. And then all of a sudden we get like all of our hopes up. I mean, this has been a roller coaster, but terrific information on all the receivers. I wish that we could potentially even do this again sometime, maybe after the draft or right before the draft. We get a more clear picture of some of the receivers. We could do some team fits and schematic stuff. This gets a little bit more nuanced and detailed. Today was just a kind of fun thing to do, and you provided a ton of information that was very valuable for anyone that was able to find us today. So appreciate you, man.
I appreciate the kind words. No, it's been great. Definitely learned a thing or two, and I know Edgar's the O-line or the trenches guy. He wants to be.
That's right.
And hopefully we get the trenches guy to help fix that. I'm sure you were pretty happy when we signed Robert Hunt, and
yeah,
that one was simple. Why can't this one just be so simple?
Why can't we have nice things?
Yeah, it's all good. Whatever happens for a reason. And hey, just Mason Graham even shoots up more at 8. Adam Schefter just came back from what I'm seeing on ESPN. He literally just left the set and just walked into the set as it was going.
Maybe we got some news coming.
Yeah,
they're just walking. It's crazy.
Well, Jordan, thank you again. Your reasonable takes are well received on Panthers Twitter, because usually we want fire takes, and your reasonableness is not allowed here. But yeah, we appreciate you. For all those that are watching, for those who stuck with us for this special free agency edition of the Draft Crush, we thank you, and we'll see you all next time.